I'm going to show you how to animate smooth UI buttons in Roblox Studio. So if you want your game to feel more polished and high quality, this video is going to help out a lot. Alright, so for the setup for this, what I have is I have a screen UI with a frame inside of it. This frame is so that I can keep all of my UI buttons in the same spot on the screen. So as you can see, I want all of them on the left side, so I went ahead and made the frame the size and the spot that I want it. And then inside the frame, I have a UI list layout. This is so that we can adjust the size of the button with the animation. And then I have a list of buttons. Also, the thing with this is that they don't all have to be the same size. So if you want one button to be bigger or something, then you could still do it and it'll work completely fine. Alright, so now to animate these buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a local script into here, into the UI. And then we can go to start. So the first thing we're going to need is the tween service. This is so that we can animate the buttons. And then we need to get the player GUI. So with this, I'm also going to add sound effects for every single button in the game. So that's what we're going to use the player GUI for. So we're going to get the local player and then get their player GUI from that. And then we're going to get the click sound and then hover sound, which if you need some sounds like this, you just go to audio in the toolbox and then look up like click or something. And there's some decent sound effects that you can find, but I have my own sounds that I'm going to use for this just to show you guys. So you want to go ahead and put these sounds under the script and then reference them through here. Anyways, you want to get those sounds, and then I'm going to get a variable called left UI. All right, now we need to get some tween info. So we'll say hover tween info equals tween info dot new, and then we want to put the amount of time that it takes for this tween to complete. I'm going to do 0.3 seconds. We'll do enum.easingstyle.back, and then what this will do is it'll make the button grow slightly larger than what you want it to be, and then it'll go back down to the size that it should be. And then we're going to say enum.easingstyle.out, easing direction, sorry, .out. Okay, and then we want to get a unhover tween info, tween info.new. The time is going to be 0.15 because we're going to use enum.easingstyle.sign for this. Might use a little bit of faster time on that. Then we'll say enum.easingdirection.out. For sign, easing direction doesn't really matter at all, but back it does matter. Alright, then I'm going to get a table called local. You can name this whatever you want. This is just so that we can store some data in the script. I'm going to make a function called setUpSounds. So we're going to go for underscore UI and ipairs player GUI get descendants. And then we're going to go ahead and say link button sound, which we're going to make this function in a second, and then we'll pass in the UI right there. Now this would work, but for example, if you had a inventory UI that created new buttons for every new item that the player gets, those buttons won't have sounds that'll actually play whenever you hover over them or if you click them. So to get around this, what we need to do is player GUI .descendant added connect function, and this will actually take in the descendant. So we just say UI like that, and then we'll say link button sound. Let's make sure we type that right, and then pass in the UI. So that's so that if we actually are creating new buttons at runtime, it'll still connect the sounds and be good. Now let's create that link button sound function, which takes in the button. Now we need to check if button is a text button or button is a image button. Let's say if not button is a text box, then button dot mouse button one click connect function. I will say click sound play. Now the reason I'm checking if it's not a text box is because you can click on text boxes, but I mean, me personally, I don't want a sound playing whenever I click on them. If you want a sound to play whenever the player clicks a text box, you can go ahead and just delete those lines like that, and it should still work. And then after that, you want to say button dot mouse enter connect function, and then you'll say hover sound play. Now we need to create the function that actually sets up the animations for the button. So we'll say function set up button anims, and then in here we're going to say for underscore button and ipairs left UI dot frame get children. Which actually, I'm going to get rid of this frame and then put this up here. So since we have a UI list layout in here, what we want to do is we say if button is a text button, and if you also have image buttons, then you could add this or right here, and that would work. You want to say local in props equals a table of size is going to equal it's going to equal button dot size plus udim2.new 0.16 0 0.08 and 0. So the reason we make this a table is because tween service needs a table of properties to actually work. So the size is a actual property on the button. As you can see, we use button.size. Now if you want to change this, if you want the button to be wider whenever someone hovers over it, you can make this number bigger or smaller. And then if you want it to be taller, then you want to change this number. All right, now in here we want to say local out props, which is going to equal size equals button.size. This is just so that we can reset the size of the button after the player is not hovering over it anymore. All right, now we're going to say local. We're going to get our table for local. We're going to index this at button.name hover. So what we're doing is we're creating a new variable inside of the local table called the button's name with the hover added onto it. So if it was info, it'd be info hover. And what we're going to set this to is we're going to say tween service create. We're going to put in the button, the hover tween info that we made earlier, and then the in props. We do it like this so that we can access this anywhere we want, and it's also really easy to access as well. And then in here I'm going to say local button.name. We're going to make a new variable inside of this table called unhover. So this is whenever the player stops hovering over it. We're going to create a new tween of the button, unhover, tween info, and then out props. Now we can actually link the buttons to actually play the tweens. Which you can see, we're just going to say button mouse enter connect function, and then in here we're going to say local index that button dot name. We're going to add hover onto this if I can, colon play. And also if you want to play these at any other time, let's say you wanted to play the info hover, you could just say local dot info hover play. If you really wanted to play the tweens, you know, at some other point in the script, you could do that. But we're going to use the button.name because it's still accessible whenever we make an event like this. And I'll say button.mouse leave connect function. And I'll say local, basically the same thing, but this is going to be unhover this time. I'm going to play that. And then we're going to go down here. We want to do one more, and that's whenever the button is clicked. We want to make the unhover play whenever they click on it. Link the button sounds, and then also, oh no, we don't want to do that. We want to say set up sounds. We want to set up the sounds and then come down here and then say set up button anims, and then it should work fine after that. So now as you can see, it plays the sound whenever you hover over it, and then it also increases in size and shrinks back down whenever you unhover on it. Alright, that's it for this video. If you guys found this helpful at all, make sure you like and subscribe. If anything broke, just make sure you rewatch the video and make sure everything is set up correctly, and it should work for you. See ya.